Time to say a very good morning in Washington, D.C. to Sebastian Gorka. Sebastian, welcome back to the show.
Cheers, thanks for having me, Mike. Adam Bolton blocked you.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a snowflake. What happened?
Well, do you know, when the original impeachment vote took place in the House of Representatives all those weeks ago, I put out where he said, it's all moving badly for Donald Trump. He put out one of these doom and gloom type tweets. I said, wouldn't it be funny if it didn't happen, right? And then when the vote took place and the vote went through, he tweeted me back saying, "I'm sorry you don't like the truth. You'll just have to take it and take my advice next time," or something like that. Anyway, so because he obviously thought that I meant that the vote in the House wouldn't go through, which is not what I meant. What I meant was that this is a waste of time. It's a hiding to nothing. You know very well that the Senate is not going to impeach Donald Trump, and I'm afraid I had to teach him a lesson at the weekend, and he didn't like it.
That is so embarrassing. It never was going to go through.
No.
Nancy Pelosi is deranged. If you saw the video of her on Saturday.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my. She has she was banging the podium.
Yeah.
She has totally lost it. And by the way, let's be very, very clear. The president, this is the first time ever in history a president has been charged and acquitted twice.
Yeah.
And just for Nancy, acquitted forever
Right.
twice. And the hashtag that's getting a lot of exposure now is hashtag roll on 2024.
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean, I said, and you and I have both spoken about this on many occasions, that this is the worst thing that the Democrats could have ever done. Because rather than concentrating on a new president, a new, boring Joe Biden, who's doing even less than we thought he would do, and has managed to achieve the square root of absolutely nothing, which is the polite version. Here's a guy who has been overshadowed in the first month of his presidency by the former president, because they've been trying to jail him, and it's nonsense.
But it's not just that. It's that scene near the end of the original Star Wars where Darth Vader and Ben Kenobi face off.
Yes.
And Obi-Wan says to Darth, "If you strike me down now, I will be more powerful than you can ever imagine." Yes. Which is exactly what they just did to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is now the de facto, whether he runs or not, and I haven't asked him, but he's going to make that decision. Whether he runs or not, he is the most powerful person in America now outside of the White House, and probably inside of the White House right now, because let's be clear, Joe Biden is not there. He is not cognitively there. If your viewers haven't watched this, this isn't partisan politics. Watch the viral video. He signed 50 executive orders like a dictator. He signed 50 executive orders in 3 weeks, and there's a video of him trying to put his pen back in his pocket. It's not difficult. Watch. I'm not going to look at my pocket, and I put the pen in my pocket, and it's there. He tries 5 times, Mike,
right.
And while he's failing to find the hole, he's mumbling to himself, gives up, and says, "Put in pants." And then he puts it in his pants pocket. This is a guy who has access to the nuclear launch codes, Mike. Right. It is scary.
And I see that he's not just wearing one mask, but he's wearing 2 masks now. I'm not quite sure why he's doing that. Maybe he forgot he already had one on.
Yeah, there's a reason we call him Sleepy Creepy Beijing Biden, and his mask, whether it's going to be 3 or 4 next week.
Right.
By the way, can I just say congratulations? I listened to the New Culture Forum interview with you, and your history here in the US. You had some fun in the 1990s, Mike, didn't you?
Yes, most of it I can even remember. I mean, but there were parts of it that I obviously can't ever tell what happened. But yes, I mean, I really did. I mean, I was in the Reagan White House when Charles and Diana first came. You might remember the famous dance scene where Diana danced with John Travolta. I was there. And that was a proper president, and that was a proper Republican Party. And America back then was a magnificent nation, I think.
No, it was, and that was why Donald Trump got elected, because what was his cri de coeur, what was his battle cry? Make America great again.
Yeah.
For everybody, irrespective of skin color, irrespective of whether you have an accent, whether you were born here, whether you're an immigrant. And that appealed across the spectrum, a lot like Reagan. People forget, a lot of blue-collar workers, a lot of registered Democrats re-registered to vote for Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, and that's what we saw. I saw it with the president. I flew on Air Force One to Steel Valley in Ohio with President Trump. We got out at a stadium, and it was packed. It was packed with people who you knew were Democrats, whose parents were Democrats. And when he came out on stage with Melania, he couldn't give his speech for minutes because they were chanting USA, USA. And that's in Steel Valley, Ohio. That's in Youngstown. So Donald Trump is now, he's opened his new office in Florida, the office of the former president. Melania just opened her office of the former first lady. He's already endorsed his first political candidate, the amazing Sarah Huckabee Sanders, his former press secretary, who's running for governor of Arkansas. So the guy's back in the game. And you know what? He's back in the game much faster than even people like me expected after the riots on January the 6th. Why? Because of Nancy, Mike, because of Chuck Schumer, because they came after him, they tried to martyr him, and they failed again.
And what about Mitch McConnell? I mean, a more disingenuous man you could not find, and there's plenty of them on Capitol Hill. A guy who votes to keep the status quo, votes against the impeachment, then makes a speech making out that he had to do that, but he didn't really want to. I mean, what sort of a weasel does that?
Well, that's the same reason that we voted for Donald Trump. He said, I'm going to drain the swamp. Mitch McConnell, who has an R behind his name, who was the leader of the Senate as a Republican, is a backstabber. He is indicative of the rhino class, Republican in name only, and we have to get rid of it's like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, who groveled on his knees to become a member of the Trump cabinet, wanted to be Secretary of State. Donald Trump had dinner with him, said, no, you're too slimy for me. And then he votes to convict Donald Trump. Hang on, you want to be in his cabinet, but then you vote to convict him. That is the quintessence of the slimy swamp, and we have to get rid of all of them. We have to have, people are saying we need a third party. Disaster. You can't have a third party. That's how we got Bill Clinton when Ross Perot ran as a third party candidate. It is time for the MAGA movement, the Make America Great Again movement, to take over the GOP, take over the Republicans.
And those in the Republican Party who are not fans of Donald Trump say that he has now got a ridiculous sort of stranglehold on the party. Is that true, one? And two, if it is true, why is that a bad thing?
Sadly, he never had a stranglehold on the party. There was never that moment where the president... Politics are a little bit different here. It's not quite the party politics you have in the UK. The president runs as an individual. If he wins, then he becomes the kind of functional head of the party. Never really happens, but there's this organic cooperation between the RNC and the new president. We never managed to establish that. Why? Because there are too many swamp creatures in the RNC. If we had, we would have seen a different result in the election. We would have sent out thousands of poll watchers months before the election. The RNC never did that. So now it's time for that organic connection to be made by the president, and he can do it. Let's just remind your viewers and your listeners, Mike, Donald Trump last year received more votes than any incumbent president since George Washington. 74 million Americans voted for a man who'd been lied about for 4 years. They called him a misogynist, an Islamophobe, a white supremacist, and a Nazi. And despite that calumny, that libel for 4 years, what happened? 11 million more people voted for him last year than they did in 2016. So this guy is unstoppable, whatever Nancy wants, and he will be the conservative kingmaker, full stop.
Interesting. And I see, by the way, that the rot has already set in with the White House crowd, and Biden's already lost one of his press advisors who apparently threatened to destroy a young woman reporter because she revealed that he was having an affair with another young woman reporter. I mean, the sleaze doesn't stop, does it?
No, and despite the fact that there was this hilarious Zoom call between Sleepy Creepy Biden and his cabinet, he had like 30 little screens up. He was standing. It was all posed, and he said to them, "If anybody disrespects anybody, I will fire them immediately."
Yes.
Well, you didn't fire your deputy press spokesman. First, he was suspended for a month, and then yesterday he had to resign himself because he said to a reporter, "I will destroy you for talking the truth about who he's sleeping with in the media call." You know, he's sleeping with somebody who's supposed to be covering the White House, come on.
Well, I mean, it's an age-old plan of the lefties, isn't it, to infiltrate the media? They do it in an unusual way, it has to be said. And what about that bizarre interview that took place? I don't know if you saw it. It was doing the rounds on social media. I'm sure you did, with Trump's lawyer and the woman from CNN who kept saying that she was doing it for her listeners. So that they could understand. And I mean, he completely destroyed her.
Some of the most popular videos that I'm in are my times on CNN when I was in the White House, because I did exactly what that lawyer did. I called them out for their lying. And the idea that the host of the show is trying to excuse the House impeachment manager's forgery of a tweet. Well, it was just a tweet. Well, hang on a second. If a prosecutor is found forging evidence in a trial, you know what happens to them? Not only do they get disbarred, they can go to prison. And she was just kind of laughing it off. And the president's lawyer, he lit her up. And if you haven't watched and seen what Mike's talking about, watch the video of Donald Trump's lawyer flaming that host, and it was gorgeous.
This is the thing. I mean, imagine if you were up on a speeding charge or something like that, and you somehow falsified the day at which you rented a car, and you said, well, I couldn't have been driving that car because I was driving this car. All I've done is I've changed the year. It's not a problem. I think you'd find yourself, 1, in contempt of court, 2, behind bars for quite a long time.
Right, but this is who they are. They're not journalists. That when the president said fake news, not the media, because they always misquote him on that. Fake news are the enemy of the American people. He's right, because most journalists, power to the exception, but most journalists here in America, at least, have become activists. They're not journalists. They are propagandists for one side. And look, we know, we have to disclose it here in America, who you donate money to. 93% of journalists give money to the Democrat Party. So, we know the truth, and that's why we have to stand up to them.
Absolutely right. And as far as the midterms go, there will be opportunities for Republican senators, I guess, and representatives to be removed. How will that work? Because how do you select each of those people?
Well, the fact is that we have primaries here. You know this. So if there's somebody who's an incumbent who really is one of these rhinos and is up for a re-election next year, then you can, if you get enough signatures, every state's slightly different, but if you get enough signatures, you can run against that person. And the big question is going to be, if you are a MAGA individual, if you represent yourself as, Trumpian, make America great again, jobs for U.S. workers, build the border, immigration policy like the president said, then the big question is, will you get the stamp of approval from the president? And look, he hasn't designated a site for his library. That's what most former presidents do. We're going to build the Reagan Library or the Carter Library. He has established the office of the 45th president of the United States, which tells me something, that he's in this politically. Whether he runs or not, he will be choosing to give support to those people he believes in. And if you're primarying somebody like Mitch McConnell and President Trump gives you his seal of approval, I think you're toast. I mean, this is a guy who could fill a rally stadium now. If he said tomorrow, I'm going to Georgia, find a football stadium with 40,000 seats, he will fill it. And nobody can do that. Sleepy, creepy Biden can't do that. Nancy can't do that. There's nobody who has the love, the adulation, and the support of tens of millions of Americans.
No, of course. And the other thing that's going to help Donald Trump is sleepy, creepy Biden, as you call him, has now started handing money over to Democrat states, to governors of those cities which were looted and burned and destroyed, by and large, by Black Lives Matter marches. And he's not giving it to places controlled by the Republicans. So you kind of go, oh, this is an interesting way to heal the wounds that he keeps talking about.
Not only that, think of this. We have a handful of governors who've said enough of this insanity. People need to get their jobs back. Kids need to go back to school. And one of the bravest and the most successful is Ron DeSantis, who may be a future presidential nominee, the governor of Florida. And because he's so successful, Sleepy Creepy Biden has said we may have to instigate federal travel restrictions to states like Florida, not California, where COVID is out of control and where people are running in their tens of thousands out of the state, but Florida. It's like, remember the old Soviet Union? You needed a passport to travel internally, not externally, internally. And they're so healing. They want to have so much unity. They want to punish citizens of one of the biggest, most successful states because they're not towing the Democrat line. And if you haven't watched that video, watch Ron DeSantis's response, because he read Sleepy, Creepy Biden the Riot Act, and it was majestic.
We'll get to that one. And what about those anti-Trump people who say, listen, forget about the fact that he wasn't impeached. More people did actually vote for it than didn't. But what about those who say he's going to be charged in New York for some kind of fraud or other involving his companies? He's going to be charged in Georgia. I mean, we've heard all this before. It's a little bit like the Brexit brigade, who were anti-Brexit to such an extent that they were talking about locking up Boris Johnson. You know, people were filing lawsuits in the Supreme Court here, trying to stop the prorogation of Parliament. You know, it's a very similar kind of thing, isn't it?
It is. Let me just give you an example of one of those groups. It's called the Lincoln Project. The most outrageously,
I've seen them,
right, the most outrageously anti-Trump, allegedly former Republicans who created the Lincoln Project to trash the president, his family, anybody who worked for him, raised $90 million to do that, funneled $50 million of it to the companies of the founders. I mean, just outrageous. And what happened to them? They just imploded this on the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. They just imploded this weekend. They found out that they've been protecting a pedophile who's in their ranks, a co-founder who was sexting 14-year-old young boys as this doyen of the anti-Trump movement. Their CEO just resigned. They're hemorrhaging. This is, look, they're filled with hate, Mike. Sooner or later, all of these people get eaten by the hate that is inside them like bile. They're going to try it against the president. They're going to try it in the courts. But look, check out the last 50 years. Check out the last 50 years of what people have tried to do to take down Donald Trump. Every single one of those losers has failed. They'll bring it. They'll try. They'll lose. And you know what's going to happen, Mike? He's going to be even stronger when he comes out the other side.
I think you're absolutely right. And I'm delighted to say, Sebastian, I've just been informed that today, of all days, is Adam Bolton's birthday. So I'm hoping he's going to be playing this video out later on when he goes home for his tea and crumpets.
Happy birthday, Adam.
Well played, Sebastian Gorka. Thank you very much indeed. Of course, host of America First podcast, former advisor to Donald Trump, and of course, a regular right here on the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. Because I did tell you, if any of you out there would like to apologise to me for doubting me, that would be just fine. Because, of course, we are the home of common sense. We are the home of free speech. And we are the home of getting things right. I told you Donald Trump wouldn't be impeached. Now he's been unimpeached twice. For heaven's sake. This is Talk Radio.